team. James Ham, kind enough to jump in here with us a little bit early. I wish I could say we're talking Kings basketball. We've been hung up on the Lakers for a couple of minutes talking about these different Los Angeles Lakers storylines as it pertains to Bronny and perhaps more specifically, Hammer, about JJ Redick and the open coaching position that they have and how this all kind of centers around LeBron James. And I was making the argument, Hammer, that this is the way that Jeannie Buss operates. Jeannie works with the people who she trusts. She works with people who are really, really close to her. The Rambuses is an example. Rob Pelinka, for an example, who obviously has the ties to Kobe Bryant, who she was really close with. She still relies so much on Irvin Magic Johnson, who was so close with her and her dad for the last, 30 some odd years. The way that the Lakers are operating right now isn't unusual for Jeannie, nor is it unusual for the Buss family.
No, it's not. I'm confused as to how they continue to sell this as like anything other than just like weird behavior. But it's how they operate. Like it's hard to imagine that JJ Redick is the most qualified candidate for this position. And I mean, he's just not. And I don't know what makes you qualified and what makes you not in the eyes of the Lakers, but it seems like we keep going down this same exact path. And realistically, it's been going on for, a long time with LeBron. Like he picks and chooses who coaches and what trades they pull off and
Well,
like
we think.
well,
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I want to be fair. Like, that's a fair belief, but we don't know that that's 100% true.
Yeah, but I mean, we definitely know that like he had a say in Darvin Ham being the coach. We know that the Cavs when Mike Brown had come back and started working for the Cavs again, they thought LeBron James didn't want Mike Brown there a second time,
Mhm.
and so Mike Brown was let go then. Like this isn't the first time he's picked and chosen a head coach for his team. So, like, I don't know why this would be any different. And just to me, it's like at this point, we're coming to the end of his career. It's whether it's a year, or whether it's two, whether it's three, who knows? But, the guy is 39 years old, 40 years old. And this is like, I don't know how you make decisions now based on him and whether he's going to be there or not. I mean, you don't even know if he's going to be there this summer. So, I mean, we all assume he's going to resign with the Lakers, but
Yeah.
there's a possibility he doesn't. That he goes off script here and does whatever he wants. That he does do what wherever Bronny goes and finds himself a way to get onto that team. We don't know,
I
but
don't believe that. I think LeBron's I think LeBron's legacy is too important to him to I do think LeBron wants to finish as a Los Angeles Laker. And if he doesn't, I think he wants to finish his career as a Cleveland Cavalier. Now, this isn't because he was at the game the other day. It's because it's Cleveland. Like, I don't think he wants to go play for Orlando or Sacramento
yeah,
I don't think he wants to play anywhere else just because Bronny's there. I think his legacy is really important to him. And I do think there's something Jeannie will give him the full Kobe Bryant treatment on the way out. Like Kobe's last year was epic. It was a year-long 82 game event. And I think Jeannie will do anything she can, whether it's hiring JJ or drafting Bronny or both of them, to make sure that that happens. And the more I say it out loud, the more I'm finding trouble in faulting her for that. Because if this isn't a championship team, you've got to figure out, like, how can you still maximize what you are? And you can do that with LeBron James.
no, that's true. If you're just going to be like the traveling circus on the way out the door, I mean, I get it. I mean, like, look,
It's a very profitable circus.
the one that stands out that they did this for initially was Kareem. You remember
Mhm.
Kareem's
Mhm.
like final year, his victory tour and people giving him motorcycles and, all these crazy gifts on the way out the door. Like, I get some of that, that you would want to do that with LeBron and you'd want him to be a Laker while he was doing it. I totally get that. But I'm intrigued by the fact that we're just kind of like writing it off, that the Lakers are just deciding that they're not going to be great, and they're going to do whatever they can do to like kind of be a sideshow
Well,
by
I don't
NBA
think that's what they're
purposes.
going to try to do. I just think that might be how they wind up.
Oh no, I agree with you. But again, there should be a way to try to avoid that.
Yeah,
At least you would think.
I can't. I just don't see that. Like Rob Pelinka is not. And Jesse kind of brought this up in a different way a second ago. Um, Rob Pelinka is not Sam Presti.
No.
If no one believes this is going to happen, nor do I hope this happen. If LeBron James retired today, Rob Pelinka wouldn't go, Jeannie, the best thing we could do is trade Anthony Davis and, just really blow this thing up, get some draft picks and start to build. They're not going to do that. They'll be like, okay, well, that sucks. So who do we go get? What do we do? Let's go get Brandon Ingram back. Let's go do this back. Like, they're going to reach and stretch and scratch and claw and do whatever they can to just stay somewhere in the vicinity of where they are. Like, if they're not going up, they won't allow themselves to go lower, at least not intentionally. They won't allow themselves to go lower. Now, they might wind up going lower, but they're certainly not going to do that strategically, at least not in my opinion. At least the things that I've heard and read from, Sam Amick, from the Los Angeles Times, from different things like that. I just don't think that's how Jeannie would operate.
No, I mean, I get that. And I also get that, they don't really have any more like ridiculously bad trades that they can work out with Danny Ainge. Like, Danny Ainge has kind of run out of ammo to feed the Los Angeles Lakers here. So, like, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but I definitely think it's like one more summer of LeBron,
Mm-hmm.
and we're gonna, we'll see the end right here. Like, is he going to sign a 3-year deal with the Lakers, and we'll kind of know that that's where he's going. What happens with his son? Where does he go? Like, again, I don't know. The Lakers there could be a team that falls in love with the kid and says, "Oh no, we think that he can be a player for us." And I also think they're doing a brilliant job of marketing him right now, of him going out and comparing himself to players like Davion Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a really, really good idea for him to not compare himself to his dad, which is
Sure.
going to be bad, or, start talking about how you have Russell Westbrook game or something, something crazy. I think
Mm-hmm.
they're doing a really good job of saying, okay, like, look, this is what type of role player he can be in the NBA. And he's worth taking a flyer on. So,
Yeah, with Bronny, I just hope, and this is, I feel like the conversation around Bronny has been so unfair, and we're going to move on to other basketball stuff because this Laker stuff is starting to drown out everything we're doing. And I know some of you have already vomited, so I apologize. I just evaluate the young man as a potential NBA prospect.
mhm.
Like, I feel like so many people, like, they just go over their top with their assessments on him because he's LeBron James's son, or they're trying to angle for something, and it's like, yo, you're talking about a young man who's trying to make his dream come true, just like, the other 100 young men at the combine. Like, I know it's difficult, man, but yo, be fair to my man.
No, I get that. I don't know if he's a pro prospect. Like, we
Yeah,
didn't even get to see enough of him at USC to know if he's a pro prospect, and I think that that's unfortunate. And he probably should have stayed in school one more year,
I
and
agree.
whether it was at UCLA, I mean USC, or somewhere else, like, go try to make your name somewhere. But I also, like, look, how do you judge a kid who barely played and who had heart surgery and who has, like, so there's these things that are stacked against him,
Hmm.
and I almost feel like if it weren't the fact that he's brawny at this point right now, if you look at just his body of work and his physical ailments and his height and his weight and his wingspan and everything else, he probably shouldn't go in the top 60 picks. And that's not me being a jerk. That's just me saying, hey, look, let's think of this objectively.
Mhm.
Look at who he is, where he is, his health concerns, everything else. It's hard to imagine him being drafted. Now, I think he will probably get drafted, even if it is by the Lakers in the second round. Like, but good. Like that. That's fine. I
Yep.
hope he's able to shake this and have his own career and carve out his own niche in the league. It's just really tough. Like we've seen plenty of players who can't live up to their dad as a pro player, and I think we're also seeing right now there's a handful of players in the league who have not only lived up but who have surpassed their dad. Even I think Sabonis is right there with his dad as far as like the greatness that we're seeing. Although Arvidas was so great in Russia before he came over. So I think that's one, but like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, both of them have surpassed what their dads were as players. There are a lot of players who usually don't live up to those standards and who struggle to trying to find their way in the league when they're, a great player's son. And so you just don't know what he's going to look like when he gets on an NBA court.
All right. Everyone except Kenny and Jason Jones are sick of the Lakers talk. I didn't mean for that to go on as long as it did. It was so multi-layered. What's even funnier, Jesse, is the chat says KC was in the chat. I can't see his message on the screen. I had to go to the website and see that he did message us, but for some reason Casey's message didn't pop up on our screen. He's been banned from work. It's crazy.
Well, maybe he was writing in all caps like our friend earlier today.
Well,
Just
maybe he
saying.
was, and maybe Ramsey booted. Maybe Ramsey booted KC. I mean,
That
hey,
would be awesome. He's
knows?
there in the doghouse with RR.
It'd be it'd be tremendous.
Yeah.
What'd you think about what happened last night?
I
Surprised?
Yeah, well, I think every game of this series we've kind of been surprised, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a very weird series. Yeah.
It's been a really weird, crummy series. Like it hasn't been a good series.
Mm-mm.
Like every game is a blowout, like one way or the other. It feels like it it's just not a highly competitive series. And I think it's interesting because rarely do you get to game 7 and like you haven't even had one that feels like it was remotely close. So yeah, we'll see. I
Do
don't know
you
what's
have a
going to happen.
feel for this series? I don't have a feel for this series at all.
No, no, I think it's whoever comes out and punches the other one in the face. Like that's what we're waiting for. It's like both teams have come out with these with a different spirit to them in the games that they've dominated, and I still think that the Nuggets are the better team. Um, I don't know if they have all around better talent, but as far as like been there and experience and all that stuff, but that doesn't mean anything at this point. When you let it get to game 7, like all bets are off. It's a coin flip. It's and I don't know what's going to happen. I just think that we're watching two coaches who are doing a great job of playing chess and trying to get their team in the best possible position to win. And now it's on Michael Malone to see if he can recover after a pretty bad beatdown by Chris Finch.
I'm glad you mentioned Chris Finch because I got so much love for Anthony Edwards. My love for him this season, particularly this postseason, has just grown like crazy because last night he was asked about 10 different things that pertained to him. And in every single situation, he directed the answer elsewhere. You mentioned Chris Finch. He was asked about, hey, what was your idea of this, your idea of that? Oh, man, it was Finchy. Finchy told me blah, 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 blah. Finchy did this, Finchy. He mentioned Jay McDaniels earlier. Every single turn. Mike Conley in the post-game press conference, he brought up Mike Conley. Every single turn, he directed the attention to his teammates and to his coaching staff. And like with all of the things that he does on the court, I just looked at him like, man, that is a superstar move right there. That is a A-list move right there.
Yeah, it's one of the cool things about dealing with NBA players. You don't know how any player is going to handle like being asked questions, right? And I know a lot of times players will, if you do ask them about themselves, they won't give very good answers. But if you ask them about their teammates, specifically, like, "Hey, I'm writing about something about this player. Can you kind of give me a quote on what you think he's meant to this team?" type deal. That's usually when you get the best info when they are talking about someone else and not about themselves. On occasion, you get a player who really, really likes to talk about themselves. But I do think it's also a sign of leadership for a young player to try not to take the credit for what just happened, to try to, disperse and give everybody some love in the room, which is a good thing. And he's not the only one who does it, but I certainly think it's probably part of just kind of how his mindset is as a player and how he likes to speak. He might not be all about himself all the time, and that's a good thing.
Yeah. The Timberwolves, the Nuggets, and the Thunder are all teams at some point during this playoffs where I looked at them like, man, they might be the best team in the conference, James. Thunder might be the best team in the conference. Timberwolves might be the best team in the conference. Nuggets might be the best team in the conference. The Mavericks are up 3-2 on the Thunder, and I've never once thought that about them. You talk about not being able to get a feel for the series. I can't get a feel for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, I said this early on. Like, if you were going to ask me who was going to win that series, the experience level for Dallas is just so superior, and it's really tough to get past that. And I know talent wise, again, like I will tell you, the Oklahoma City Thunder are much more talented, and I think they're a better team. That doesn't mean anything in the playoffs. It can only get you so far, and then you get to a point where it's like, okay, they're more talented, and they've got matchup problems and stuff like that. But when you're up against Kyrie, who's been there so many times, and you're up against Luka, who, even though he's 25 years old, he still has been through plenty of playoff series, plenty of big moments in his career. It's just super hard to get past that, and, I think what we're seeing right now is sort of the experience is winning out, and I don't know if that'll be the case the whole time, because I do feel like, again, that's been a really good chess match. Like most of these like, playoffs have been that. I mean, there are a couple of, rounds that have been a little, or a couple of series that have been a little, like, wonky, and the team's just not up to snuff and not ready for whatever's happening. But I do think that series right there, the Dallas series, it's tough to get a handle on what's happening for sure. But I think that the league should be on notice, because Kyle and I both noticed something from the last game, and that was that it sort of seemed like Luca like found his joy and stopped complaining.
Mm-hmm.
And he's embracing the fact that he's playing a game for a lot of money in front of a lot of people, and he's having a good time. And if that's who you get in game 7, I don't know that there's gonna be someone that can beat them, in
Well, I
in
think we
this
got a
round.
game 6 first,
Yeah, oh,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
It's 3-2 in that one. But to your, I'm glad you brought that up about Luka. I don't know about the joy part, but I know Luka acknowledged he he acknowledged the officials part,
Mm.
and that paraphrasing a little bit, but the gist of it was, I've got to. It was a conscious effort to not talk to the officials. I have to stop talking to the officials. And I don't know. I don't know why at this point in his career, in game 5 of a second round series, he determined this was the time to do it, but he did it. And you're 100% right. No one was talking about any potential knee injury after that game. Like, uh, he looked perhaps as fluid in that game 5 as he did maybe all playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, he's a guy that, like, for me, it's so painful to watch because I just can't.
Mhm.
The crying gets so old. Like, he just he won't stop. And again, people who watch him on TV is one thing. People who watch him live, it is unbearable to watch.
Yep.
Like,
It's tough.
it's almost like when if you watch the NFL, like, and you're watching every play of a game, right? What you don't see is like some of the incredible routes that are run that no one throws to them, right? Because it's off screen in the NFL. In the NBA, like, there's a lot of off screen time where they're panning to the crowd, they're panning to the defense getting back, whatever it might be. That dude is chasing officials all over the court, yelling at them. And to see him not do that and to just enjoy where he is and who he is and how well he's playing and that the crowd is chanting Luka sucks, and just to have him like live in the moment as opposed to just being filled with angst, it does change my perspective on it. If he can do that the rest of his career, man, he can be really enjoyable for everyone to watch because he is so gifted. It's just for me, like the foul grifting, it gets old, but he seems to have gotten past that at this point because just nobody's calling anything.
Mhm.
But then the other part is just like the personality. His personality is grating on the
Yeah.
court,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden his personality wasn't grating. You're like, wow, look at you embracing this and having a good time and having fun and smiling. Like, okay, I want to see what you look like in this frame of mind, not that other one where you're just complaining.
What if would Dallas be the team of the 4? Would Dallas be the team you're most surprised at if they went to the finals?
Sure. Yeah,
I
I would
think they
think
would
so.
be for me. I don't have an explanation why. I just can't figure them out. I think it's so incredible, and I think we talked about this on the handoff. How they've, you're looking at the Pacers and the big move that they made during the trade deadline, and still you look at them trying. I feel like the Pacers will be better next year.
Hmm.
I think they've had a tough time maybe establishing who they are or establishing what they want to be, or maybe Rick Carlisle's felt like we can't deviate too much from what we have been because it was successful for us and we don't want to do like a complete overhaul here and try to be better defensively and do all of these different things. Let's get as far as we can with this and whatever adjustments we have to make in the offseason after we sign Siakam to a lengthy contract extension, keep it moving. With the Mavericks, it feels like they've just gotten better as the days and the weeks and the months and the games have gone by since that trade deadline. And they have made a complete adjustment as to what they are as a basketball team. They sucked prior to the trade deadline on the defensive end. They were terrible. And now they're not. Like, now not only are they not, they're like far from it. Like, they're a solid defensive team. They're a team now that can win games multiple ways, something the Indiana Pacers don't appear to be able to do. The Dallas Mavericks can win games in multiple different ways now, which is something they weren't able to do back in January.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting too because it's not like you really got different. Like, really, like Derek Lively was already on that team. They went out and got Daniel Gafford, who's basically the same player. And Rashawn Holmes was there, just not as good a version of what we're seeing from these guys.
Mhm.
But I can make the same exact comparison with Grant Williams and with PJ. Like, they're very similar style players. It's not like you went out and just changed everything. You added another center that does the same exact thing that your current center does, and then you added another player who's just a different version of the guy that you traded. And for that to work out this well and for PJ Washington to just find his game and really start to excel during the playoffs, I think is really cool to see. I also think like they should have some room to grow because they have a bunch of players who just really haven't had an impact in the series too.
Mhm.
It's really been Kyrie and Luka, the two bigs, and PJ Washington. And you could still have like a Hardaway game. You could still have some of these other players like Maxi Kleba and stuff like step up and actually have a moment. But either way, like I think that like Dallas is, because they are a veteran team, because they made changes. What we're seeing is a team that made a bunch of changes, and right now they're peaking. We're seeing them start to peak at the right moment. I don't think that they, because of all the changes they made, like, they certainly got better at that moment, but they're also getting better and better and better as the season goes on. And, so that makes them tough. And as far as Indiana's a long way away. And I think, like, Tyrese Haliburton watching film this summer of himself is going to be very difficult. Like,
Mm.
I think he's gonna take it to heart. He's gonna see what a lot of other people saw, have been seeing, where, he's sort of avoiding the moment in certain plays, and, like, not able to get out of the way, and also just, like, acquiescing to somebody else in the offense, giving the ball up way too easily, not being the driving force that he has been. I think there's gonna be, like, a really, really tough film session, which he'll probably, whether it's with an assistant or the head coach, he'll have a moment where he's just like, "What in the world was I doing?" And I don't think we'll see the same player next season. He's gonna be a much better version of that, and I think that they will grow from this, just like I think OKC is gonna grow from this experience, and I think Minnesota's growing from this experience. And I think, Denver grew from it last year. Like, look how
Mhm.
good they are now and what we think of them now, where before they had won a championship, you just really didn't feel that. So,
Yeah, I completely agree with you regarding Tyrese, which is why I don't think the Pacers are that far away. I think they're a
yeah.
really good offseason away for Tyrese. Like, I think the way you laid out Tyrese's potential offseason is perfect. Like, I think that's exactly what it needs to be. And then these guys getting time, the collective, the roster, getting some time to play together and establish exactly what they want to be. And it's one thing to understand what you want to be. It's another thing to execute it. This team has to get better defensively. This is, whether it's the Knicks or it's the Celtics, this is their ceiling. You can't get too much further playing on defense the way that they do. To become a true, I mean, in an Eastern Conference, finals contender or an Eastern Conference finals team, that's a good look. But if your aspiration is to win a championship, and every team that is their aspiration, they've got to find a way to get better defensively. And I think that's where it starts to fall beyond Tyrese. I think it starts with Tyrese, but after that, like, this team has to grow collectively, and Rick Carlisle is going to be a big part of that as well.
Oh yeah, he's one of the best coaches in the NBA as well.
Mhm.
X's and O's. He's a great coach, and they still have room to grow. Aaron Neesmith is a young player. Nemhard is a young player. You've got Matherin who can grow. Isaiah Jackson, like they've got plenty of players that still have a ton of room to grow and to become, much better all around NBA players. Even Tyrese has so much room that he can grow as a player. So yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to be a really good team in the Eastern Conference for a couple of seasons, unless they lose Siakam for some reason. Unless Siakam just decides he doesn't want to go back there. But anyway, I think that again, it's hard to watch a team like sort of reach their ceiling uh, in a playoff series, but you can see it. You can see it with
Mm.
them. And someone in the chat said, "Hey, that Halliburton's still having a better series than Sabonis did last year against Golden State." And I would argue that's not the case. There's been 2 games this series, where, again, out of 5, where Halliburton took less than 10 shots and was completely ineffective. Look at his assist numbers, look at his rebound numbers, look at his overall numbers. Just because he scored 30 in 2 games and wandered into a 20-point game, that doesn't mean he's had a better series than what Sabonis had last year. Sabonis didn't actually. He had, I think, 2 bad games, like 1 marginal game and 3 really solid games. He wasn't bad in overall in that series. And look at the rebounding numbers. Look at how some of the other things that Sabonis does. It kind of keeps him afloat. But I do think that you're going to walk out of this series kind of feeling that Halliburton has to get better, just like you did with Sabonis. Sabonis needs to get better. I'm not saying he doesn't, but to say that he's having a way better series than Sabonis did last year, just not
No,
accurate. Yeah.
Hey, do your thing. Now since we're doing this, I don't know why we're doing this, but since we're doing this, compare him to De'Aaron. Okay. One, there's absolutely zero need for this comp, but if we're just trying to find kings, let's go 1A versus 1A. What'd Tyrese do versus De'Aaron? Give me those numbers. Y'all, stop it. Don't give me those numbers. Y'all stop it. There's absolutely zero reason to compare Tyrese to Domantas Sabonis in his playoffs last year. That's silly.
Yeah.
I'll bring this in because I want to talk about the Kings when we get back. Julian asked this a little bit ago. If the Celtics don't make it to the NBA Finals, does someone get fired? I don't think so. I don't think if they miss out on the NBA Finals or they lose the NBA Finals, I don't think anyone's getting fired. I think whoever I know Casey talked about it, but I think it came from the chat. The Celtics 49ers comp, man, that sure feels like it's spot on. You got two really, really good teams who just can't get that last victory that they need. But I wouldn't fire anyone in San Francisco, and I wouldn't fire anyone in Boston.
I'm with you.
Best analyst in the game right there, folks. That's our man, James Ham. We're going to come back. We're going to talk.
I thought we were going to a break.
No, we are. We absolutely are. We're going to come back because, truth be told, we've had our fun with the NBA. We need to talk about the Sacramento Kings. We had some interesting conversations earlier, James. Mostly, it wasn't the intention, but it wound up centering around Kevin Huerter. And I want to have those conversations with you because you're as locked in with this team as anyone. So we'll talk Kings basketball when we return with our Kings Insider from the Insiders, our man James Ham here with D1 KC on Sacramento Sports Leader, ESPN 1320. Oh, man.
Hey, I'll be right back.
Okay. Let me uninstall all these tweets. All these tweets, all these messages. There we go. Who's this? Well...
CJ, I don't know. It doesn't work because he doesn't coach, but it's Brian Scalabrine. I don't care. It's Brian Scalabrine.
Oh, man. Thanks, Russell. We appreciate you, man. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Yeah, well, maybe so. Maybe so. Drew down right again. I'll bring Pacers. Got into the second round before the Kings. I'm not sure what you mean, BJ, but if Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were hurt last year, I'd take the Kings going to the second round too. Tyrese isn't overrated. Tyrese is really good, but he has shortcomings in his game. So the funny thing about this, and I guess maybe by definition, sometimes they talk like he doesn't. So maybe by definition of what you just wrote, you're right. I was thinking about that with Caitlin Clark earlier because Caitlin has a lot of shortcomings in her game, but she's so hyped up. They should have laid out who she is as a player better heading into this season, and they haven't done that. So people who are tuning in to see if she can score, 40 or 50, they're being, disappointed because she has shortcomings in her game. She's going to get better, though. She's going to get better.
Honestly, it might be Neemias Queta.
Yeah, there you go.
Got himself a standard deal this year.
Nemi.
What's going on?
Not much, man. I almost chuckled. I didn't bring it up because it would have thrown us off. But I looked right up at the TV, and I must have missed this last night. It's when they threw the commercial. But, man, A-Rod is sporting one of them extraordinary tans that he has. And I know how you feel about Alex Rodriguez and his tans.
A-Rod stinks.
I just looked up and was like, man, he looks terrific.
His tans are as real as his baseball stats.
Oh,
Let him know, James.
Oh, look at you guys.
That's right.
Look at you guys.
We won't let somebody write the book on a fraud.
A fraud. Hey, it looks like Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck are getting divorced, so maybe A-Rod's got a shot again.
That's terrible.
No, what?
That's terrible. Love didn't make it.
No. Got the replay going right now.
Drew down, they're a lot nicer to A-Rod than they are to the others.
But Rodriguez got caught twice. Like, he didn't just do it once, right?
I think he told us about it in ESPN one time too.
Yeah, he did. He came clean, so we should all feel bad for him and just kind of, Yeah. I mean, this is possible, but I mean, wasn't he part of that other abomination of a movie? Jersey Girl? Is that what it was? She's a really bad one with J-Lo. And it might have Ben Affleck in it too.
Hey, Soren, chill out. Relax.
Oh, man. All right, we're coming back, Hammer. Back here with our man James Ham. KC will be back with us. He's tapped in somewhere. I think he might be on the Odyssey app. Here's the Sports Center update. I don't know. Maybe he's driving the kids around.
Maybe he's in the backyard, has the Odyssey app up, getting shots up in the what is it, the crypto.co, the crypto arena.
Yeah. Little crypto.
Little crypto. That's
little crypto. Yeah. He's getting the shots up.
No bigger Laker guy than Kenny. Shout out Laker Kenny.
And poor Reese is just sitting there like, Dad, you said it was my turn. Nah. Gotta hit 80% before I get off the gun.
Well, Reese can play with the gun or whatever. It's the matter of we have this list of chores for you to do, Reese, and you won't get it done till midnight.
Ryan's probably watching Moana, just or Laker highlights, one or the other. I'm not sure.
That's right.
This is Nick Van Exel, Ryan.
Oh man, Casey will be back with us on Monday. Hammer, I mentioned we wanted to talk about the Sacramento Kings here to close out the week. We kind of got into a bit of an impromptu discussion earlier regarding, what things might look like for Sacramento this offseason, and it felt like everything centered around Kevin Huerter. And we're just stuck in this. We're stuck in this, vortex of where the Kings world centers around Malik Monk. And I think certainly me, Casey, and Jesse, and I'll ask you, if Malik is back, are you working under the assumption today that he's the starting two?
Malik?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I mean, look, I think that there's a world in which he comes back and has the same exact role, but maybe a bigger version of the same role. And I mean, as of today, if I were like a betting man, I would think Keon Ellis is probably your starting shooting guard to open the season with Monk playing more of a role because you're dealing with a younger player. And that doesn't mean that Kevin Huerter is no longer on the team. But I think that we could see if Kevin is on the team. I have a hard time believing that both Kevin and Harrison will be back. I think one or the other will probably be, well, at least we'll hear a lot of rumors about one or two of them. But like I have a hard time believing that both of them will be back. And that could open up minutes for a player like Kevin to slide over and play a bunch of small forward. Because look, first of all, he's only 25 years old. And secondly, he has an elite skill that I think it's just tough to come by in the NBA, a guy who can shoot the ball and has such a gravitational pull that he does. And it's way bigger than what Harrison Barnes, even if Harrison outshot him this season, it doesn't matter. There's still a lot more focus on Kevin Huerter than there is Harrison Barnes. And so I think you could still see Kevin find a way to be an impactful player for the Kings this next season. We just have to wait and see how it all pans out in the wash. Like what happens at at NBA trade deadline. I mean, at the at on draft night, what happens on the first couple of days of July, all that stuff.
Can you afford for Kevin Huerter? Because you said he had an elite skill, and he does sometimes. Can you afford to go into another season with Kevin Huerter? And you have to know that you're just going to have these sometimes really, really dramatic ups and downs. And I understand that's that's a shooter. I understand that's a scorer. I understand that's a season, especially when you're not De'Aaron, right? De'Aaron has to have 25 plus every night. Like I get that. Domas has to have 16, 17, 18 every night. I understand that as well. But Huerter could be 3, he could be 33. And I add, like, can they afford, especially with his shortcomings on the defensive end, can you afford to go into another season knowing that's probably going to be the case?
Well, I don't think you can if he's your starter or if he's a guy that you're expecting to be like what he was not last season, but the season before. The season before, he was the Kings' third best scorer. He finished third on the team in points per game. I don't think that's what you want to go into a season believing. But I still think that Kevin is a valuable NBA player. Defensively, he's not as bad defensively as he played last season. Like he's proven throughout his career. And I also, at 6'7", kind of like him a little bit more at the small forward position than I do the power forward. I mean, the shooting guard position anyways on the defensive end. So that might be something that you transition him to anyways. But like, look, the way the Kings are designed is that it's Fox, Sabonis, and then it's Keegan, and then it's Malik, and then it's kind of like an equal opportunity. And as long as you have other players that can help, and a guy like Keon Ellis who can hit threes, a guy like Trey Lyles who can hit threes, whoever else is with this club, whether it's Harrison or it's someone else, like this isn't one of those situations where the entire night is hinging on whether Kevin Huerter hits his threes or not. I don't think moving forward, I don't think that's the team you can be. That he just unfortunately, he proved to be unreliable for an entire season. When it came to shooting the three, not as a player overall. I thought he did plenty of good things. I thought he was a good passer. I thought, he did a fine job rebounding on plenty of nights. But as a shooter, I think, and as a scorer, he kind of hurt his value a little bit. And now you have to look at him more as the player he was the first 5 years of his career with Atlanta, and not the player he was in year 1 with Sacramento. More around the 12 point per game guy than the 15.5 point per game guy.
I just think it's fascinating that it felt like there was never any waiver from Mike Brown regarding Harrison Barnes, despite the fact Harrison might have been clinically dead for the first 41 games of the season. But man, if he thought there was a way to get Huerter out of this conversation, if there was a way to get Huerter out of the starting lineup, or, maybe less maliciously, if there was just a way to reduce Kevin Huerter's role a little bit, he would have taken it back in training camp. He originally thought, I don't think I'm reaching here, he originally thought it was Chris Huerter, and it wound up not being. He got the replacement he wanted, certainly not in the way he wanted, but he got the replacement he wanted in Keon Ellis. He got that defensive juggernaut that he was really hoping for. It wasn't the player he thought, but he wound up getting it. And again, despite the fact Harrison Barnes might have been clinically dead for 41 games in the season, it felt like he never wavered there. If I know we lump these guys together for contract purposes, we up these guys together because Harrison gets a lot of hate too. But if I were to ask Mike Brown specifically, I don't know this is how he would answer. I feel like if I were to ask Mike Brown specifically, it would be Kevin over Harrison, and he'd be happy to have Harrison back unless it is a clear upgrade. I don't think he'll make a lateral move for a player to replace Harrison Barnes. I feel like he'd make a lateral move if it was to trade Kevin Huerter, though.
Okay, so I think one of the reasons why we feel that way is because I don't want to say it's more important, but your two guards playing defense, it kind of is more important than your wings playing defense. And I know that sounds a little strange, but if your front line of defense gets blown apart every single game, and it's a guy running downhill on Domas or on your wings, on your forwards, then like, look, there's no way to overcome that. It makes it very, very difficult to overcome. So I think having a guy like Keon that can slow things down, and to not only that, but like when you swap those two players out, Huerter and Keon, I think we just saw the team look more competitive. They looked, especially on the defensive end, we saw them be able to rotate faster. We saw them have, like Keon. I mean, he had moments where he was just as good a scorer as Huerter was, and proved to be just as good a shooter as Huerter in a small sample size. But the biggest difference is you kind of want to see what Harrison Barnes looks like with a player like Keon, who stops a lot of that inline drive, who stops a lot of like the panic defense that the Kings would like constantly get stuck in, like always trying to recover. And Mike Brown talks about giving the second, the third effort. You don't have to give the second and the third effort if your first effort stops the ball and there isn't this huge rotation and there isn't a breakdown of the defense all the time. So I think like getting the last 15, 20 games, whatever it was that Keon was allowed to start there, I think it will help this team long term, because it showed you sort of just what the defense looks like overall with a different player at that position. And again, I don't even think is as much an indictment on Kevin Huerter as it is like the combination of Kevin Huerter and Harrison Barnes, and those two not being able to recover quickly enough to help out. And then when you put Keon in there, and there isn't all that recovery all the time, there isn't as much switching because he's able to get through screens like crazy. It just changed the dynamic of everything. And I kind of want to know what it would have looked like if Harrison was the guy that was out and Kevin was moved to the 3, and see if that would have looked different as well. So, and the other thing I'd say about Kevin is he talked about this in his postseason sort of exit interview, that he really, really worked hard on trying to master the DHO play, the coming off that high screen from Sabonis and like taking that big swing to the outside and launching, and teams were waiting for him. They were having like the outside guy shift over and take away some of those and just throw another body at him at weird times. And he really felt like he hurt himself by trying to be something, by working on like the technique of that play and of that offensive style more than just working on his overall game. And he just felt like when they took that away from him, like he really didn't have a counter. And he told us he was going to work really hard this summer once he's healed up on what that counter would be, and on just being more of a well-rounded basketball player like he's done every other season, every other off season of his career.
I do like that he acknowledged I don't know if he acknowledged in his exit interview, you'd remember better than I did, but I know he acknowledged it at some point during the season. I feel like he did a media thing after he got hurt, like maybe it was before a game or something. Mm-hmm. But I know at least on one occasion, potentially on two, he talked about, he was trying to not let stuff get to him. And I feel like he was alluding to the Mike Brown stuff in training camp, and he was alluding to, missing shots and how bad games for Kevin. And this seemed to be this was the case not only this year, like it was the case last year. It was just more dramatic this year. He was talking about not letting bad games become bad weeks. And I appreciated the fact that he was able to acknowledge that, but I think acknowledging it, obviously that's a step, but it's not the only step. You've got to be able to correct it. And there were times, and I don't know how many times we discussed this, James, but it sure felt like a lot, where we'd come in the next day and you'd point it out, and Kevin's in his head. Like, Kevin Huerter is living in his own head right now, and he's worried about everything he does on the basketball floor. And we thought Mike Brown was I think Casey thought too, Mike Brown was responsible for a lot of that. I think he put that seed out there. I think he maybe mismanaged is the wrong term, this situation with Kevin Huerter, but maybe he misread it and he thought Kevin would be just fine if he kind of messed around with a few things. And it turns out he wasn't. And that moment in training camp was the start of what for Kevin really was like a season from hell that culminated in the worst possible way for him.
No, I agree with all of that. I would just say that I'm not sure that I fully I think Mike saw something that we all ended up seeing a little bit later, and that was that he wasn't that Kevin wasn't ready and he wasn't right, like for whatever reason, like that Mike saw Mike
Not
started
ready for what?
like he wasn't ready when he got to camp. Like he whatever it might have been, like mentally, he wasn't ready to step in and play 30 something minutes a night as a starting shooting guard. And to be honest with you, I think as much as anything else, Mike saw that there was a problem before we did and was grasping for straws and was looking for other options because he was worried he was going to need other options. And there's a delicate balance there as a coach where you're trying not to upset somebody's psyche and everything, but there's also like he knows them better than anyone else. He'd been watching that team run up and down and do drills together without a coaching staff, for the 2-3 weeks before training camp started. He probably saw stuff before. He probably had conversations with other players. He might have even had conversations with Kevin about just like what was happening. And, I think we all want to say, well, he wasn't showing Kevin, sort of like empowering Kevin. But I also think that there was a possibility that he already knew what was going to happen with Kevin, and it didn't matter what they did to empower him, that they could see that he was off and they needed to look for other options at the shooting guard position, even all the way back to training camp. And so it's tough, but like I told you guys early on, you could see like a hitch show up in his shot when he wasn't when he's in his head, he flips his wrist back and cocks his wrist to go to shoot. And it's like, man, you're one of the better shooters in the league. What are we doing here? Like, and how do you stop that? And then you could see him catch himself doing it and then hit 3 shots in a row. And then sure enough, he'd start to do it again. He'd come off a screen and rock the wrist back. And you're like, oh no, there it is again. And not, it's not like he's too good of a shooter to have those kind of problems. And I think that the coaching staff knew it coming into the season.
He's one of the more. Do we have a timeline for his return? By the way, I think we've talked so much about whether he's back, whether he's not, trade, upcoming draft, free agency, all of that stuff. What is his timeline for return?
I think it was 4 months from the original surgery.
Oh, okay.
So,
and that's March, the end of March, maybe early April.
Yeah, right around there. He had the surgery. So,
because they lost Huerter and Malik within days of each other. So that was like 10 games without Malik. So it was probably about 11 or 12 without Kevin.
Yeah, I mean, it was Desmond Bane, right?
Yeah.
So Huerter ended up playing 64 games, and I can look and tell you exactly when that happened. He got hurt on the middle of March. On the 18th, he got hurt. But then, it took about a week before they realized fully what had happened and all that stuff. And then he had like that time
surgery
where it was
didn't
like,
happen on the 19th.
No, it was like, are you gonna have surgery, or are you gonna try to play through, like wait and see what happens? And I think it was about 10 days before they decided on surgery, and then it was like another 3 or 4 days before they actually had the surgery. I remember they were at home and Kevin wasn't there, and people are like, where is Kevin? And then someone, I believe in the chatty house, said they saw him on a plane. And that was probably like right around the first couple of days of April, where he went down and had surgery.
So we're looking at like a more than comfortable return.
Yeah, he should be back by the end of July, early August, on the court working. And not only that, but he's his recovery is that, but that doesn't mean that he can't like be working with his right hand, which he's right-handed. Doesn't mean he can't be working with his, dribbling and everything with his right hand and doing a lot of work. And like we're talking about 4 months for like competitive play. It's not 4 months to get him back on the court. I think we're learning more and more with injuries like this that the faster you get back and you start doing exercise and you start moving around, like sort of the faster it heals with the shoulder. So once sort of like the surgery itself is healed up from, and the labral tear is fixed and sort of patched up and scabbed over a little bit, scar tissued over, I think that's when he'll be back on the court, like doing drills and stuff.
Kevin Huerter in the 13th pick, leading us to a championship. Man, I can't wait. What a story that's going to be. That was a little sarcasm.
Yeah.
I don't know what to think about the draft either. Like, are you going to do like 4,000 draft? Your radio can't see. James is shaking his head. He's not interested in this at all. I kept thinking, like, what are we going to do to approach this? It's the 13th pick. Everyone seems to hate this freaking draft. Like, I don't know what to do.
It's such a difficult draft because we were even looking at some of the NBA has their anthropometrics, which is like all of the stats that come out of the combine, right? So you have your height, you have your weight, you have your wingspan, you have your standing reach, you have your, all of the basics, your cone drill, your 3/4 court, all this stuff, right? And even this draft, like there are players who have hurt themselves just in the draft, just in the combine, that they couldn't like really, like you didn't think that they could hurt their value, and they did. Like even like Filipowski, the big giant center for Duke, like he's taller than his wingspan. Like I don't know that I've ever seen that. He's like 6'10 3/4, and his wingspan is 6'10 1/4. You're like, wait a sec. He's actually taller than his wingspan. And even some of the guards that are considered top, top 5, 6, 7 picks, they're showing up at 6'2.5" with a 6'3, 6'4" wingspan. They're like none of the like raw stats are helping almost anybody. There's a couple players who clearly can improve their stock or did improve their stock here by the measurements and stuff at the combine. But there's also a lot where you're just like, this whole draft leads you like very much like questioning what it is. Like I wouldn't want to be in the top 5 of this draft. I looked at it today, and the first overall pick makes almost $11 million in year 1. And then the second one is like 9.7, and third pick is like 9. And then like, it's so much money. And I don't think that these players early on in their career are going to live up at all to even the salary that you have to commit to them. And that's really, really tough.
Maybe they'll surprise some people. Who you got tonight? Pacers Knicks. Getting to game 7. What do we got?
It's on right now, right?
Starts in about an hour.
Oh, okay.
It's the only game tonight.
I'm watching a replay then of the other game.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Knicks take care of business, but
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I like it.
Kind of been wrong multiple times in this, and what's going to happen in these series. I don't know what's going to happen this weekend. I don't know who's going to win that Denver Timberwolves series at all.
Dallas close out tomorrow?
No.
Okay.
I think OKC bounces back. I think that one goes 7. So I'll
like
probably be wrong both times.
I hope you're right about the Knicks. I really want, and I don't actually. I would be more than happy with a game 7 at the Garden on Sunday. I'd be more than happy with 2 game 7s on Sunday. I just really want the Knicks versus the Celtics. That's the series I want for the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah,
I want to see the Knicks versus the Celtics, and I want to see all of you back here on Monday. James, we appreciate you as always. We've got